Frederik, we are together in Voksenåsen, where we have this huge summer course with 200 students every year. And I'm curious because I've been here for 27 years. No, that's not true. I've been here for 23 years. And so I'm very curious, what do you think, who's here for the second time? I mean, are we having a nice time? Are the students developing?
We're having a crazy time, but I think we're having a really good crazy time. But it's like a melting pot that's boiling all the time, and you feel like when you go to stuff like this, in particular here, you don't sleep enough. And you listen to too much music, and you meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's like high intense octane driving very fast in your car style.
So you get high actually from being here.
Yes, I think so. And I think it's enormously inspiring. And I think for the kids, for the students, I hope, but I think it's very inspiring for them. There was this other night with one of the concerts in the evening. There was this clarinetist. You were there, I think, right? Who told this very touching story that he had a hard time. He had a hard time somewhere, but here he felt safe and with new friends, and he met some amazing people. I think that's very, very cool, and that's also a thing that this kind of academy can do, right? It's not only about the music, but it's also about the stuff that happens around the music. And it all goes hand in hand, of course. But I mean, this course they will remember. And they also remember the other 23 of them.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the fact, right? The people that were there, they remember.
No, and that's interesting that you say this with a part in addition to the music, because we're also trying, I guess, to have a conflict-free zone here. Yeah. Because in our daily lives, it's quite a lot of competition, and if the colleagues are united in a good spirit, it affects the students immediately, and we are friends, and we are new and old friends, and try to inspire them. But it's another interesting thing because we ask the students almost every year how they want it. We have forums and one thing that I can't get my head around is that for us as teachers, maybe it would be nice to have one student. We have lessons every day, so you can have really development. But they love going around and just seeing everybody.
Yeah.
And it's fun. I mean, from a learning perspective, it's more like a boost, right?
Right.
You can actually change some things in a couple of lessons, but I find that interesting. Maybe that's a part of what you're saying. It's a spirit thing. You want to experience as much as possible up here.
Yeah. I think they leave very inspired and very confused.
Yeah.
Yes. I really think because I asked them yesterday, on a scale from 1 to 10, how confused are you now? And then I said, okay, fine, and I will confuse you even more now. Yeah. But that's also part of it, right? And I think that's. I also try to tell them that, I'm gonna say things now to you, and all us and the teachers. We all have clever ideas, and at least we think they're clever.
We think they're clever,
right?
Yes.
And we have deep philosophical, thoughts about music and playing violin and so on. But in the end, it's the students that have to choose and pick, right? So I feel like it's my responsibility to tell them that take what you want, leave the rest, for me at least, right?
Yeah.
And then when you have all these people saying stuff to you, you end up with hopefully quite a lot of things from different people that suit you as a student. And then you leave with a kind of a puzzle that you have to put together yourself. Which is also part of it. It's a nice exercise for them, I think.
I mean, what I say, they have to do, of course. They cannot choose anything. No, but I think you're right, and it's also sometimes that's what we do in the lessons too. We explain why, but I played for him or her, and then he said, and then you try to discuss why. I guess it's also because the one-to-one teaching is so we are tailor-made. We are kind of making things work for the arm you were born with and for the posture you have and things like that. And then over time, when you have the same teacher every week, you do what the teacher says, right? Yeah. And then you realize when you're done, or maybe you don't realize until you're done, that you're actually the one deciding yourself. Yeah. And I guess that's the bit of the shock here. Yeah. That it can be done like that, or you can absolutely go to the left or to the right.
Yeah. You said something very clever the other day that I
thank
thought
you.
about. Yeah, it does happen apparently.
Yeah, sometimes.
No, but you said that being a teacher is like being a mirror.
Yeah.
I like that very much. I think that's very cool. And I think that's one of the challenges for us here, because we have these 40-minute lessons, and you always wanna you wanna tailor stuff for the student, but 40 minutes is very short in that way, right? Because you have to get to know a person and feel their, their place in where they are in life almost, right? It's a lot of things. Playing music is not only this stuff, it's also this stuff. And then you have to give them some advice that hopefully will fit them as a person, as an individual. I think that's very challenging. Do you have any tricks for that?
For being a mirror?
For reading a person and finding the right things for them.
I mean, I think people teach quite differently, of course. Right. But for me, it's a bit like I almost feel sometimes tension watching people. Yeah. So and then of course, if you teach for many years, you start to see patterns of. It's like chain reactions in the body. I mean, many people tell you to keep your shoulder down, but it doesn't help if this shoulder goes this way, then it'll go up anyway. Right. There's all these things that you need a mirror to see it. Yeah. And in my experience, many students and myself included, you go to the mirror and it looks perfect, right? And you walk away from the mirror and your bow is not that good anymore. Yeah. So it's a bit like having somebody watching you day after day after day. And the nice thing here is that they are sitting in on the lessons too, sometimes. And then if you have a friend in the room, I usually take the opportunity, turn around, look what you're doing. Every time there's a dump or you do this, or you have patterns that you can try to change. Yeah. And everything is just to be free, right? To be able to express exactly what you want to express. I think athletes do it all the time. They have somebody picking on your, the way you ski.
Right. It's about being efficient. Right. That's something I think about a lot these days. How to be efficient in our playing. Yeah. Because playing the violin will never be a natural resting state, right? No. It's a horrible position to be in and day out. Yeah. So it will never be totally relaxed, but we can get pretty close. And we have to optimize movements, and sometimes you get string crossings like this, then it's easy to see, but then other times it's hard. Very
subtle. Yeah. And that's why you need the mirror. Yeah. And I think even setup stuff, we do it a little bit here is something you do in a longer stretch, but you can change things when you're together 5 days, and then you can come back, back tomorrow if it doesn't work. Yeah. Because you just move 1 centimeter here, it affects, 10 centimeters there, these things. Yeah. No, but it's also this performance thing. That's another thing here. We are trying to, I guess, you can be in different states. If you're coming from your holiday and you're just getting into shape, that's fine. If you're on the way to competition, you get to play in the evening, and And I think people wake up or slow down, or it's kind of nice to see that it's not. I mean, many in schools, of course, you have deadlines all the time. But here you can. I mean, this is Scandinavia for you, right? Yeah. You had 4 weeks holidays in Scandinavia. All the Brits, of course, have been working all summer, but they come here rested. Maybe it's very nice atmosphere. Yeah. But we're also close to. I mean, down here is the ski jump. Yeah. And some of the.
I'm not going skiing again.
No, because that was my. I wanted to ask you a little bit about this, because when I saw, your quartet, the Danish quartet, is it's actually not only yours. You're sharing it, the four of you. But
it's mainly mine.
It's mainly yours.
Yes.
That's what I meant. And then you guys are our new artistic partners here, and we're going to do a lot of crazy things for the chamber music and solo teaching. But I happened to teach in New York when you were playing in Carnegie Hall. That was a great concert, by the way.
Thank you.
But and you sounded good, but you actually had a broken hand.
Yeah.
And I think maybe you need to improve your ski technique. And we have a very good
the
jump, but we also have a roller ski training center down here. Maybe next year because you must be careful, Frederik.
Yeah.
So how did this happen?
Yeah, well, I was doing cross country skiing.
And you're Danish.
Yeah.
Are you used to cross country skiing or not?
No, well, no, but more and more. I mean, my wife is very good at cross country skiing, and her whole family they always skied. So I started with them. And I was horrible at it in the beginning, but now I think I'm okay. I mean, I'm okay.
It goes forward, not backwards.
My watch thinks that I'm talking to it. Sometimes it does this.
After the accident, they're checking on you all the time. Yeah. But so when you're skiing, it's going the right way. You're not going backwards.
It's going no. It's going the right way, and I can get by. But I had an unfortunate fall. It was like it was a tricky place with everything was a little bit off, and then I fall and I hurt my head, and I thought the first thing I thought it was that it was broken.
Yeah.
Because I broke my other arm.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. We need some better techniques.
I need bubble wrap around me or something all the time. But then I went to the emergency room and had an X-ray, and they said, "You were lucky, you didn't break anything." And then we were going to the States 6 days after, and at that point it was this big, something like that. It was crazy. But then I thought, do I call them and tell them that I'm messed up, or do I wait and see? And then I decided to wait and see, because I mean they couldn't do anything, the other guys anyway.
No.
So I waited a few days, and then it fell. The swelling fell a little bit again. I ate a lot of painkillers. Yeah. Of course, I ran home to my cabin and picked up the violin that I had with me and started playing with a hand like this, just to check how it felt, because that's the first thing you think of, right? It's crazy. Actually, it's kind of crazy. Yeah. But that's the first thing you think of. And in some miraculous way, it felt okay to play. I mean, it was very strange and it was painful, but it felt okay. So I thought, okay, we'll give it a shot. And then it fell, and so I thought, okay, I can probably do this. And then I took off. I ate a lot of painkillers on that tour. I did. Yeah. But also because the doctors told me to, because I thought I had, heard some other stuff. So I went and I stretched a lot and, had all these painkillers and played these 12 concerts or something.
12 concerts?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then I got back home and it just kept on hurting, and I got a massage, which did not help. No. Then I went to the hospital and, then turned out it was broken all the time. So, yeah.
But when you because then obviously you couldn't play for a while after that.
After the accident?
Actually, you had something put in here.
Yeah, then I had a screw put in, I had an operation, and then I wore a cast for 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
6 weeks, yeah.
So that makes me curious, because I'm not very good at long breaks.
Yeah.
I kind of have to I'm not a natural talent. I have to practice all the time. But yeah. What do you do after 6 weeks? How do you get back into shape?
Yeah, I think this is it's interesting because okay, we can talk about this first, but there's a whole mental aspect of it as well, because I don't know if I had a surprisingly easy time getting back into shape, and it surprised me, because other times it takes me longer, but for some reason this time was okay. But when when the cast came off, I could barely move the hand. I could do like this, I think.
But you could.
But I could play, but I had a hard time with high positions because I couldn't bend this way, and I still don't bend all the way. So very high positions still are a little bit of a challenge, but it'll come. But this time I decided that I was gonna take things slowly, which I almost never do.
No.
I'm very much like everything or nothing. So I did a lot of, I picked up all my old warm-up exercises from when I was studying in Copenhagen and Berlin. And I did at least an hour and a half warm-up, just very basic things every day. And it felt really good. Yeah. I mean, it was like, this is also what I sometimes tell my students with like scales and stuff. It should be like taking this nice warm shower in the morning. Yeah, I agree. That's the kind of feeling that you should have when you're doing this stuff. And this was like because I was, if we talk about the mental aspect of actually playing the violin, I mean, we can talk about it in general, and I felt it very clearly because I've always been a very nervous person. I am always nervous at concerts. And I spent years shaking and feeling horrible on stage. Now it's better because I played so much.
You play so much.
Yeah, but still.
Does it help when you have many concerts? Yeah. So the amount of concerts.
Absolutely. But after a vacation, for example, then I need to get back in the mental shape as well.
Yeah.
But so for me, this time with the cast was kind of stressful because I didn't know how it would feel when it came off. And I didn't know how much I was able to play. So I was worried, and I spent many sleepless nights, just, thoughts going around. But this way of doing really slow warm-up exercises, practicing slow, it was also like therapy for my mind, I could feel. And it was the right thing to do.
You kind of collect yourself and start.
Yeah, because when you get nervous sometimes, if you have a big piece coming up, then at least my instinct is to quickly play through the whole piece and see if it's still there, right? And that only adds to the stress for me. Yeah. So taking things very slow, and just for me this time feeling that I was actually able to, first of all, just play a simple scale, and I was doing these very slow trill exercises because my muscle disappeared, right? So I had to train back muscle, this one. So I do these very small exercises, and it was very good for my mind. Just finding out that I could actually do this exercise, then let's try the next one.
So you will keep doing it then?
Yeah, probably not. Because I don't know. I don't think I will do as much. No. But I have realized the huge benefits of practicing slowly and kind of not so personally involved. This I would like to talk to you about, actually.
But that's interesting because that's a bit of my philosophy too.
Yeah.
But because when I was out of school, I started playing. I was playing in the Norwegian Chamber Orchestra, and I was co-principal in the radio orchestra, and I started playing solo gigs, and I like playing. I like speaking to living people, like I am doing now. So I love working with composers. So the problem is when you get a score and somebody asks you, can you play this in 2 months or 1 month? It's quite difficult to answer, especially when you're don't have much experience. So I ended up doing a practicing system, which is only practicing slowly. I mean, that it would take a while to explain my whole system, but I found that I could calculate. This is also a mindset, like you're saying. You do this, I do this in this way 5 times. I have this system, and in so many days, and I could calculate, look at how many pages there are, and I would like, okay, I call back, say, yeah, I can do it. Or actually quite often saying no. Yeah. Because, when you're young and you get opportunities, especially with orchestra, it's difficult to say no. But you have to sometimes because you might break your hand otherwise, or hurt yourself, or become really nervous. Yeah. But this system for me is also a way of always being relaxed because I get very excited on stage and I move a lot. So I'm trying to be in control. And it ended up being my basics for teaching when I started teaching.
Right.
And of course, my youngest students, like we said earlier, but they do everything I say, right? So they have to do it. And I think it's a nice, you have a set of rules and you do it in one piece or two pieces, and then you can find your own way to do it. And obviously, if you have to learn something quickly, you can't do it. It's like big stuff for playing with orchestra or audition repertoire or things that you really want to, because in the end, it can become a reflex. That's kind of the word I'm hoping. I think it works. You know, you play and it's there.
Yeah.
The note is there. You don't have. It's a bit like you're taking a glass of water. It's just there.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of time. But it's a bit like you're saying with the tunes to hurry slowly.
Yeah.
That's why I call it. So you do it slowly, but you have a plan. So it's actually much quicker than just playing and playing.
Yeah.
But of course, everybody has their own way. But it's also about the stress. It's quite interesting. Yeah. So how did you then manage to change the pattern of being so stressed or nervous on stage?
I'm not sure I really know, but I think I should have went to a psychologist. What's it called?
Psychologist.
Something like
coach.
that. I mean, a coach or something. But I never did, and I don't know why. I could have used that many times in my life, I think. But I think I was a little bit stubborn, and I wanted to fight it on my own. I think there was something in me that was like, no, this cannot be real. I mean, why am I shaking so much? And it felt like, I think that's the thing with being nervous. It feels like a personal like failure, actually, right? When you get nervous.
But I must say, you know, as a teacher or even in a jury, it makes me happy when people are nervous.
Me too.
Because it means they want to say something.
Absolutely. But to me personally, when I got nervous,
and it disturbs things.
Yeah, that becomes the main thing in your mind, and then afterwards you're like, damn it, I failed again, right? And that's really too bad. And I see students that feel more or less the same. Okay, there's one thing that I learned. This will come as a shock to you, I'm sure. But it helps being prepared.
I think really that's my experience too, actually.
And it's really annoying, but it's true.
Yeah.
So I was always the kind of person that I had a pretty easy time playing the violin, but I lacked discipline a lot. So in my studying years, I did not practice enough. I think it's as simple as that. So in effect, I started to practice late in my life. Yeah. But when I started practicing, then I could feel that being nervous didn't go away, but it became less. So I have this one little story that will match this subject really well, because we were doing the Beethoven cycle of quartets, right? And we did it. Our first time we did it was in Copenhagen. And I prepared and I practiced, and it was you know, to me it was like Beethoven quartets. I need to do this really well, and I need to like squeeze everything out of it, right? And then we did this cycle, and afterwards I was totally lost in my mind. It was I had thought it would be a physically demanding thing, but that wasn't so bad. But mentally it was crazy. Yeah. I got lost in my mind afterwards. I was almost like shaking in the month after, because I was
such an effort.
Yeah, such a mental effort and emotional effort as well. And then we had to do it. This was in, I think, November, and then we had to do it again in 19, and then we did it in February in 2020 in Lincoln Center in New York. Pretty big deal. Yeah. And so I got nervous. Because I thought, oh no, I need to do this again, and it felt really crazy the first time. And then Rune, my colleague, the other violinist in the quartet, and we did an interview for a newspaper. And the journalist started asking me what would make you happy, like with this series. How do you want to do? How do you want to feel? And I said, I want to be there in every note, 110%. I want to squeeze every drop of music out of it. It's Beethoven. It's the best thing. Yeah. I feel so privileged that we're doing this. And then Rune answered afterwards, and he said, I don't feel that at all. I don't think I care that much. And I was like, what is going on, Rune? This is Beethoven. It's the biggest thing you can do as a string quartet. I almost got a little angry at him, I think, because I thought, this cannot be real. But then in the days after, it had started thoughts in my mind. And because I know this guy, he's an amazing human being. He's an amazing musician, and he's a clever guy, right? So there must be something there, right? So I started
self-hypnosis. This is not important.
Yeah, exactly. But then I started thinking, and I took it into the way I practiced, because I used to practice like this all the time. But then I started practicing like a little bit slower, less personally involved, slightly more analytical, just teaching my body where to be at the right time, at the right moment, and place. And
but could that be similar to what I've been finding with the reflex?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I thought of it.
Reading and taking the notes.
Exactly. So and in that way, you can leave responsibility to your body. And what I found afterwards we did the cycle, and it was such a different experience for me, and it was a much better musical experience as well. So that's what I try to teach my students now, especially the ones that get a little bit nervous. So now, when I have a big concert coming up, instead of just powering through a piece, I play senza vibrato, slowly, sound quality, slow shifts, just to feel where everything is. And that helps me a lot.
Yeah.
It really
makes sense. It really makes sense. No, I think it's quite similar, very different occasions, but similar experiences, I guess. Because also I premiered a lot of pieces very early, stuff written for me, and let's face it, you're the only one who knows the piece, right?
Exactly.
I even may know it better than the composer, because I've been for 2 months, and then you find that being a soloist, you are there for 2 days, right? And the contemporary music is not always first priority. The symphony after the break might be more closer to the conductor's heart, for example, maybe even the musicians. But then, so you walk in there and you have a run through, and it's chaos, and everybody plays a bit too loud, and you're thinking this is disaster, and you have to keep cool, and professional orchestras are amazingly quick, so things can change. But the mindset around that kind of forced me to have the same idea, as you say, with just being aware of what happened, to get the right focus.
Yeah.
I was gonna tell you about, the feeling you have when you're in front of an orchestra and premiering something, and everybody's just reading, and you feel a little alone, actually.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of Fredrik, our colleague here, who has these concentration techniques, or other coaches I met also during my studies, to disturb you or to make you not unfocused, but not make you watch a particular place or your hands, but just actually being in your head.
Yeah.
If you know the piece, actually it sounds better.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen, and I see it with students too. So the fact that you have the reflexes in your system, then you can try the experiments with these things. Yeah. I mean, in my profession, I don't need to experiment. I get it on the job, But if you're playing a famous piece that everybody knows, maybe you also need a bit of that. It could be nice with some of that distraction, or even the way I practiced stuff that is so complicated that you have to break it down. Maybe it's good to do that with Mozart concertos or Bach partitas as well.
Yeah.
Because you get that feeling of a reflex.
Yeah.
But another thing is, of course, the instruments, because now I'm so curious with this, because I'm a total freak. I mean, I love violins, and as a teacher, you see also what it changes for the students. And we had this fantastic boost here in Norway with the Dextra Foundation and Anders Sveaas Stiftelse, who has bought a lot of instruments. When I was young, there was nothing.
Yeah.
And now we have so many. It's almost a luxury problem. But I'm so, because I know quite a lot about how to choose an instrument. But for a quartet, I'm curious, how do you actually, or how did you end up with the instruments you have? And they seem to match really well when I heard you with a broken hand in Carnegie Hall.
Yeah. Yeah, our instruments in the quartet, I think we've been very lucky, actually. But I mean, the quartet is so much part of us now. It's more part of us than our individual playing is, actually. So trying new instruments and getting new instruments is very much a question about whether it will fit the quartet.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And that I think I also, to such a degree that when I'm trying a new violin on my own, I maybe unconsciously think about how it will match.
But I mean, you actually swap. So you
We
have
swap,
to.
yeah.
So that's not like you. If you were only playing first violin, you would have a brighter
Right,
instrument,
yeah,
or you have a
yeah,
bigger
yeah.
one. You actually have to be able to do both.
Yeah. I think what we've come to aim for is, at least on the violin side, something that's not very bright, actually, but it's a little more well-rounded all over. It's called equal. I don't know, equal.
Yeah, equal.
Because we need to be able to do both, but also because the sound that we have grown into together is we do like a kind of a soft, not soft, but kind of round, soft sound. That you know that you can.
You want
buy
to sound like one instrument, basically.
Yeah. But but that's a whole different discussion, right? Because quartets, I think quartet stuff. I mean, the sound is almost the most important thing. Developing a sound together, but it has to be a sound that's both one instrument, but still interesting and sounding like four people.
Yeah,
It needs to be everything, actually.
to hear the voices also.
Yeah, you need to be able to navigate in that sound, and that's such a fun thing to do. I love it.
But so if one of you, for example, one of you violinists got a new instrument, would it be a big process to make
To
it fit?
match.
Let's say if it was a little bright, for example.
Yeah. I don't think it would be a big thing, but it would take us some time to adapt to it. The violin that I was playing before the one I have now was also a Galliano, and it was I met this gentleman from the States, an old guy, and it was his violin. And it's a long story. I'm not gonna tire you with it, but it's a very, very sweet story. We ended up at the same table after a concert, like a dinner thing. Yeah. And he was a business guy, but he always wanted to be a violinist. Yeah. And so he wrote poetry, went around to the schools, taught poetry to the kids, and had this business and stuff. And we started writing emails to each other because he was such a nice guy. And then after a while, he says, "By the way, I have this violin. Maybe you should come by someday and try it." And so we went there the next time, and I come by to his house, and he takes out this Niccolo Galliano that he bought like 40 years ago or something for no money. And it's just crazy good violin. And I ended up playing it for a concert there, which I would actually normally not do. No. Because I only had one day to...
And this was with the quartet?
It was with the quartet. But I spent the whole day in the hotel room just trying to get to know it. And I played the concert, and it felt really good. It felt like a natural fit. And he was very happy, of course. It was fun for him too. And then he said, when I can't play, then I think you should play it. And then I went back home, and a week after he wrote me and said, "Actually, I think you should play it now."
Wow.
So next time we went to the States, I took a detour and went to his place and picked up a Galliano violin.
Fantastic.
Yeah. But I don't play that any longer. But actually the point of it was that when I brought it home and we started rehearsing, I remember Rune was like, the first thing he said was, "Whoa, that's loud." Because I was right there next to him. He was used to a more mellow something.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there was something with a lot of punch. And they clearly had to react to that sound and adapt. But I think it lifted the general sound. Because everybody had to
step up.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
I had this idea that because I play modern or 20th century repertoire a lot, with orchestra I needed a loud, maybe modern violin.
Yeah.
So I bought a Rocca, Enrico Rocca, the son, that was never played. I was the first one to play it.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing violin. I loved it, but in the end I also ended up with a older instrument because it's something with it's something with the colors of something has been played a lot. Even in a modern violin you can find it, but it's quite tough to be number one to play an instrument.
Could you actually just elaborate on the difference between contemporary instruments and old instruments?
I have to correct myself because the problem was, it was a collector's item in a way, and the last violin he made actually, Enrico Rocca, was a fantastic violin, and it started with the fact that I was playing more with orchestras. I needed a more projective instrument. I had a beautiful violin from my grandfather, but it didn't project well enough. So, and I found this, and I wrote to a couple of people who went to my concerts, who I knew, and asked them if they would be interested. Obviously people who could afford to help me, and nice people, and they both said yes. No, actually not, because one said yes, I would like to invest in a violin. And then the other one, Bernd, he called me and he said, "Peter, why would I want a violin? I'm not interested at all, but you should have a violin. So I'll lend you the money. You should buy it. There's no point in me owning it, Yeah. And that was great, because owning your own instrument is very precious in that you don't have the stress of having to give back. So we started with this one, but it was just an idea I got. I was intrigued by the fact that it's a great maker, never played. I would be shaping it from start,
Yeah, but how much can you shape a new violin, do you think?
I think for me, people are I've heard other people play it after the same violin, and I think it's very interesting because it was, to me, it was quite dark, and I found a lot of colors in it. It was just a little tricky to play because it's a bit like, needs to start moving and shaking. I don't know what actually physically makes it work, but also that you get to know it. But then when I heard other people play it, they felt it was less color, maybe because it is not so much played, right? Because sometimes you just feel the vibrations immediately. You touch the string, and very old instruments. But on the other hand, I'm just trying to learn how to play a modern instrument at the moment, and a great instrument. And when you hear it on hold, I heard mine next to an amazing Strad, and seriously, I couldn't hear the difference, but I feel the difference.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a matter of mindset. And I can imagine if I popped my modern violin into your quartet, it would be a little bit. You would have to adjust quite a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, but on the other hand, it's just you have to learn it, I guess.
Yeah.
That's my and it's louder here and maybe even out there, which is also nice, easier to play. All the Italians can be quite changing in the weather, or having a bad day or a good day.
Absolutely. I have this idea, and I don't know if it's right, but it kind of feels right. But you can probably tell me if it's right or not. That I almost find that the difference between these old instruments and new instruments are, it's wood and it sets, and with the old instruments, they don't set as much any longer, right? Because they are old and have been played for a long time. So my feeling is sometimes with the old instruments, that we as instrumentalists have to find out how they want to be played.
Yeah.
Because they have already been set in a way, right? But with new instruments, you can shape it a little bit more, and then it will adapt to the way you're playing it.
I mean, my gut feeling is it's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was discussing this with Joseph Curtin, a great maker from the US. He's also experimenting a little bit with shapes, and I have he borrowed me a totally crazy, that's another story, but amazingly loud violin that you could adjust the sound post yourself, and
Whoa.
it was a very interesting project. But he also makes fantastic violins. We have one in the collection here for the Academy. But he was saying that it's not like that. You know, it's just you actually you change to go with the instrument. It's not the other way around. But I don't know. It's a bit like this week. Well, he's a scientist, so he knows better than me. But I had a student this week, for example, who had a very nice violin that supposedly is Italian, but it's probably not. But it's been played by a very fantastic violinist before, and I don't know. It rings, you know. It's just like a great violin, even if it's not a big name inside it. So I think sometimes when somebody practiced a lot on a violin and made it and sounds good. The same thing is if you go to auctions, and you sometimes I have seen some. Or just once actually, but I experienced a fantastic maker discovered by the firm probably who's selling it, that somebody played it in a, I don't know, youth orchestra. It looks like it's been lying around. It had a tough life, you know, and probably somebody scratched away on it. It's not easy to make them sound.
No.
You can adjust and fix them.
Yeah.
I think it's something there.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just a myths around.
Yeah. There's a lot of romantic thinking around those instruments. You know, they also, that's one thing that I've really thought about. It's really annoying to me that I don't know my violin's history.
Yeah.
I would have loved to know where has it been?
Yeah.
What has it seen?
Yeah.
You know, which wars has it gone through in some ditch? I don't know. I mean,
what year is it from?
It's 1760, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. Maybe even earlier, actually. But it has gone through a lot, probably. Maybe it's just been in an attic somewhere. I don't know. But I imagine it has been in the Napoleon Wars and
right. Yeah. But
something really
it
cool.
Sounds like it's been in the Napoleon.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I tried with mine too. It's from 1753, but I only know the last part of it.
Yeah.
But the owner, he passed away. That's how I could buy it, and I never met him. But he was a violinist in the States, and he played with Frank Sinatra, and he played with Charlie Parker.
Wow!
So I actually found some recordings with the violin. I mean, he's not playing really alone, but it's really cool. So I feel it's got a little bit.
It's got a vibe.
A vibe, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are just these little nice personalities that you get to know slowly. That's really cool.
Frederik, I've been thinking about one thing. I mean, obviously, when we're here in Voksenåsen, which is Swedish territory, gift to Sweden from Norway after the war, and you are a quarter Norwegian actually.
Yeah.
And you're 3/4 Danish. And I'm Norwegian. I have a Swedish wife, and we are like a melting pot of. We have visitors from all over the world, but it's quite a lot of Nordic focus, and especially since COVID, it's been very Nordic for practical reasons here. But is there something? Can we define the Nordic way of teaching? I mean, obviously, you've been studying in Sweden, in Denmark. Is there a difference from your time in Berlin, for example, compared to the way we teach?
I think so. I'm sure there is. We talk about it in the quartet too, because playing in a quartet is also a very a democratic exercise in democracy, right? And it's really annoying because we so often get 2 versus 2, right? With the worst kind of democracy, stalemate. Yeah. So how it's also to me it's kind of connected to how do you survive socially as a string quartet. That goes hand in hand with how is the Nordic way of teaching in a way, I think. And I think there's something about our social structure that influences the way we think a lot, and probably more than we think of, just on a daily basis, because we have this very flat hierarchy, right? Yeah. We have a healthy skepticism for authority, right? We were playing in Wigmore Hall in London. And then the Danish ambassador in London came to the concert, and he came backstage afterwards and said hi. And then we went out afterwards and got a beer in a pub. And all of a sudden, the Danish ambassador walks into the pub because we told him that we were going out. Yeah. And then he walks in alone, and he comes to our table and says, "Can I have a beer? Do you want to grab a beer with me?" And then he sat down. So we had a whole night with the Danish ambassador. Yeah. And it felt totally natural and fine. But I think that would never happen in the States or something. I mean, that's a much more, you have the authorities are really authorities. But here we could, if the prime minister walked in the door, we could still shake hands and, and I think that influences everything and the way we play as well and the way we teach. I think there's a feeling of being humble towards what you're doing. And in Denmark, we have this thing called the Jantelov.
Yeah, and we have it here too.
You have it too?
Yes.
Which you should never think you're anything, basically, right? And it's kind of a negative thing. But it also, I think, to me at least, it balances things out, right? And you approach things in a humble way. So when we're with the students now, it feels like we're investigating stuff together. I'm not trying to tell them what to do, but we're figuring it out together. And I think that's a very Nordic thing.
Yeah, no, I think you're onto something there. I mean, it's almost sometimes, especially with advanced students, you are colleagues, right? You are actually colleagues.
Yeah.
And, I guess with music, you don't have the age hierarchy either. I mean, if you're we heard a young 15-year-old here yesterday playing the cello, and I was standing behind the corner, so I didn't see him. I knew it was him, but I was like, is it really the 15-year-old? I mean, the sound was more mature than many older players. So, but in addition, I guess it's that reminds me what you were saying with the ambassador. I was also coming from playing in the States, and I was dozing on my flight, and I looked up, and the Queen and King of Sweden was sitting in front of me. So I was like, okay, So
do I get up?
They don't do private jets. I mean, so it's. I think you're right. There's the balance, but also maybe, especially up here, of course, the more quiet nature around us.
Yeah.
When I teach in London, I always first days I'm a little. There's a lot of noise and
exactly, it's stressful.
It's
going to New York City.
And New York City, even more so.
Yeah.
But could it also be that it is? I'm thinking even in sports, I guess it's changing from the trainer who kicks you around to the more positive way of building up. I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just the Nordic. Is it maybe happening in the other countries too?
I think it is. But I think we've always been a little bit more like that, or at least recently. But I was thinking you also hear it in the different countries' music.
Yes,
the composition or the compositions, right? In Denmark we have Carl Nielsen, right? And I hear the Danish nature very clearly in that music. The flat, open fields. Yeah. But they're not dramatic, but they're beautiful. Yeah. and they're very, open. There's a lot of open sky always in Denmark because there's nothing else. And you hear that, and then you go to Norway and Sweden, and it's different. It's more. There's more texture.
Yeah.
There's more drama as well.
It's true. It's very true. And I guess even you and the quartet also doing quite a lot of folk music from all the Nordic countries. But I guess we also have that in us string players. We definitely have this tradition in us, and but it's also, of course, a sound difference if you listen to the Oslo Philharmonic versus New York Philharmonic or these things.
Yeah, totally.
And of course, we have to relate to it as teachers too, because if you want a job, you have to actually be able to fit into an orchestra.
I think, exactly. Yeah, and as teachers too, because the difference in tradition, like there's a more, if you can almost generalize and maybe say European tradition, and then there's a American tradition. So sometimes, actually, just talking about this nature, we tend to like generally a more clean sound, I think, maybe less vibrato, and that's also, then you think about Scandinavian furniture or something. Those lines, right?
We are surrounded by it.
That matches the style that we like in music. And in the States, it's different. It's more like rich, right? And that's also in their general aesthetics, like skyscrapers.
No, but also as a student, definitely. But for me as a teacher, I didn't study much abroad, but I've been teaching a lot abroad and seeing the British way and the US way. It's really, I learn a lot about. And you have to, of course, to be teaching in these schools, you have to also be more aware. I've been studying a little bit. Galamian bowing and everything. So exactly. So that just so you know what context you are in. But I also find that they are very curious when you come from Scandinavia, and the way we think, it's sometimes we have the same goal, but you just achieve it in different ways, or say it to the student in different ways. And that's inspiring. And the other way around, if you have a fantastic Galamian bow technique class, everybody will be like, whoa, it is a fantastic way of playing. But and you can actually use mixes of things as well. But I'm just fascinated by the fact that there is a style actually in this. But even for me, when I started teaching in Copenhagen, I don't know if I can generalize the Danes, but
I will be very upset in a second.
You will be very upset. No, but I was just thinking about Kaja Sarja, who just passed away. She was here with the Oslo Philharmonic. We did a big recording project, and then she always gave us a gift after a big project, and she gave us a book about, or actually not to me, but to the non-Norwegians. It was a book about how to understand Norwegians. And the most funny page was says that unless you're a Finn, you might find the Norwegians a little closed. And that's also very generalizing, but it's true. I mean, people come from the US and they feel that we're sitting in the subway with that. And we find the Danes more, maybe the Swedes more polite, more proper. Right? I don't know. And as I try to have a good communication with my students, they can also criticize me if they want.
Absolutely.
Not too much, of course, but no. But then actually I had some criticism in Denmark that I'm too nice. And I was kind of, I see why. But it can be overwhelming that somebody's always positive. But of course, then I have to say that, but you have to listen to what I'm saying, because I'm not saying it's fucking out of tune. I'm saying, should we work on the intonation here? It's kind of the way of putting things. I don't know, when you were in Berlin, you had a Swedish teacher, but the German teachers, would they be harsher or more?
Yes. Absolutely. It was much more direct. I think that's another thing with Scandinavia. We tend to not like conflict too much, so we talk around it. Which is great for diplomacy. Actually.
But is it? I mean, as a non-Dane, I'm not even quarter Dane, but professor in Denmark. But then, is it also that you're always so cheerful? You have a beer all the time, and it's so nice. It's so easy to to be a colleague also, and the students find their way. It's a very socially fantastic environment.
Yeah.
But actually, I find that Danes can be also quite rough, more than Norwegian, I would say.
Yeah.
A little bit like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe that's why I seem too nice, because I don't, when it's out of tune, I'm not screaming, but
Yeah.
I don't know if the Danes are screaming, but you know, probably more direct than a Norwegian if you generalize them.
Yeah, yeah. I think we can be direct if it just, you know, in certain circumstances.
Yeah. So how would you say that to me if I was playing for you?
And you were playing out of tune?
For example, yeah.
It's hard to imagine you playing out of tune, Peter.
Of course, I never do.
I don't know if I can wrap my head around this experiment.
Okay, so let's say it's somebody else.
Okay. Actually, I don't know. I would probably say something like, your intonation is not on the level that you are as a musician or as an instrumentalist. I think it's lagging behind.
That's the quarter of a Norwegian in you, I think.
Yeah, but I think it's important to do this. I mean, both tell them very directly that it's not good enough, but then put it in a context where it inspires them to do better.
Yeah,
right.
But I mean, some also my teachers in the past. Non-Scandinavians were very rough, tough, you know, and I guess it doesn't work super well for me, but it does for some people, right? Maybe some people need, and I think then maybe I'm not the best teacher for them if I need to be hit on a daily basis. But I can understand that if you were saying yourself earlier that you didn't have structure when you was a student.
Exactly.
So maybe
I needed a hit, and I got it.
Yeah,
I got it.
But you took it well. In other words, it worked for you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say which teacher it was because I don't wanna. But I did have a teacher that I studied with for a brief time, not too long. He was very, very, very good, but he was very rarely there. So I had very few lessons, and quite often when he was there, he was sick, so he didn't come.
So you actually, that was a nice time because you never met him, or the other way around?
No, I would have wanted more lessons, but the lessons that we had were very good. But in the beginning, I spent many lessons being kind of yelled at. Because what I brought to that lesson was not prepared.
No.
And he knew that he was rarely there. So when he was there, he wanted to work with fun stuff. Yeah. Like play music. Okay. He didn't want to do bowings or fingerings or tell me how to practice. And so I had a couple of rough lessons with him because I was used to having lessons every week with my teacher. And kind of almost being like babysitting, right? Yeah. So if there was something I couldn't do, I just didn't do it, and I went to the lesson and we fixed it. Yeah. So in this way, I had a couple of rough lessons, and then I decided that okay, it's not fun to be yelled at, so I better practice. Yeah. And then so it
actually worked.
It actually worked for me because I learned how to practice, which I didn't do before. But I think a good teacher, this one I can name because it's only positive things. Actually, the other story was kind of positive too.
Okay.
But my teacher in Copenhagen, Sergej Asisyan, I was with him for many years, and he was an amazing teacher. I still love him, and he passed away unfortunately. But I think of him so much, and he never raised his voice at me or anything, but I could very clearly feel when he was a little bit disappointed in me. And it was a horrible feeling. Yeah. It was such a horrible feeling. And then I knew I had not done well enough. Yeah. He didn't say it, but he was just like, he did say one thing once. He said, "Frederik, why don't you practice? It's a phenomenon." And he said it with like this big, fat Armenian accent. Yeah. Hvorfor du ikke øver? Yeah. So,
but I think it's also the consistency part is also interesting. I mean, I find even being traveling a lot as a player, it's of course tough to always be there every week.
Yeah.
But I feel when I can, or if I can, it's so important to have this consistency.
Yeah.
Or at least have a plan for the breaks that you get and what happens. And I guess that's also a topic these days. Not toxic, but maybe a little bit when the funding is cut in many conservatories, and the most expensive thing is the one teaching.
Yeah.
And how to defend it and how to explain what we're actually doing. Why it's important to not be a group but actually have one-to-one. I've been thinking about it a lot. I think the mirror picture, the thing with the mirror, being a mirror and tailor make, we are so different. You can't just say you have a dumbbell is like this or your grip is like this. We have such different hands. You see it especially in a week like this with 30 violins. Everybody's built in a different way. You can't do it in groups.
No, there's no recipe.
And what you're saying with the psychological part of it, it's another thing. I mean, that even if you don't have the big discussions in a lesson, you actually have sensitive people working with art, and you can feel it even without words that, okay, today is not a good day, or how can we, or where the tension, or there's a concert coming up. All these things you can, when you get to know a person, you can be the mirror and tell them what's going on, what is going on now, and I'm just and then I see a pattern here, for example. I had one student who got very nervous before projects in the Norwegian Chamber Orchestra, and then was always out of it before. And I was trying to help, and then I always called after the first rehearsal. Oh, it was fine. Yeah. And then happened many times, and in the end you say, "Can you see a pattern here?" And maybe I shouldn't get as depressed on your behalf because it happens every time. It's just a way of preparing. You're nervous before it happens, and that's good.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can catch these things if we don't give them lessons every week.
No.
Or have a certain amount of lessons so you get to know each other.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't know. What's the limit, do you think?
Limit to what?
I mean,
how much?
Many schools are now going down to...
Yeah, I think I think the more the better, probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you know Almita and Roland Weymouth, for example, fantastic teachers. They were in Oberlin before, now in Chicago. They gave 2 lessons a week.
Yeah.
Husband, wife.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing results.
Yeah.
Great teachers too.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is.
It's very difficult with this stuff being cut, because we as teachers, I think every teacher in the world feel a strong responsibility for their students. So when teaching is being cut, we're probably not going to teach much less.
No. That's the thing. So it's a good business for the schools now.
It's a good business for the schools, but the bad thing is that the funding people will not feel the result of their cuts because we're not changing anything.
No.
And I'm not saying we should change. I think it's a very complicated issue.
It is a very complicated.
Because if we were to make a statement and just teach less, then it would cost a generation of musicians maybe. And I don't think that's worth it.
No, I mean, this is getting quite political.
Yeah.
I think actually, being working at several places, you can actually see it. When one school cuts or teachers leave, they move.
Yeah,
It doesn't take much time.
No, and that's the thing that happens.
Of course, we are in a small business in a way, in a world, in context, of course, expensive education, but I think it's some things you can actually not change.
Yeah.
The fact that 2 people in the same room can do quite a lot in 1 hour. I'm thinking also sometimes with when you have a fresh out of school, 17, 18 years old, starting bachelor degree, And I am there. I mean, you don't have teenage kids yet, but soon to come. And then, there's not many people who can have a teenager in your room and just tell them what to do for 1 hour. It's quite overwhelming.
So you enjoy it?
I enjoy it. No, I guess, it's amazing. They are so eager. It's life and death for many, this feeling.
I think it's a very privileged situation for us as well, as teachers, that we're allowed into a person's life like that, and they kind of hopefully accept us, because you do on this one-on-one relation, it becomes a very strong relationship, right? And a close one, at least some of the times. Yeah. And I think that realization is like, it just means that we have a lot of responsibility towards these people that are there, and we try to help them, but they actually also help us a lot, right?
They do. But it means that the schools has a lot of responsibility too, because to be a teacher also means being somebody who has room for more than themselves inside as a performer. Sometimes we have to be, my old teacher Magnus Eriksson always said the violin just demands what it demands. You just have to do it. Yeah. And so when you're stressed, I have to prepare, I have to do this, and then. But if you work around it, you can still be there. Yeah. For the students, but of course they also will learn that sometimes you are in a high pressure situation. Yeah. So it's a natural thing. You see your teacher do it, and you feel it yourself. Yeah. But there is also, of course, a problem if they don't, like you were saying, with your teacher who was never there or was sick when he was there. Yeah. That's a problem.
That's a problem.
In that way. Yeah. Fredrik, next time we meet, if we will have the pleasure to meet again like this, it will probably be in Copenhagen. I mean, we're touring the Nordic countries here. Yeah. Of course, we would have focus on the Danish together with the coffee. We need to have a lot of cultural.
I'll bring the good stuff.
You'll bring the good stuff. I'm sorry, it was a little.
The water here is excellent.
Yes, we are very proud of the water here. Yeah. But so, what? Apart from probably being in Copenhagen, what should we speak about next time?
Well, I feel like there's a lot of stuff we could talk about, but I mean, I think it's really fun being a nerd, right? Yeah. So I would really like to dig into some really nerdy stuff.
We're going deep.
You're talking about the rosin.
Rosin.
Yeah, yes. I think that's an awesome topic. Yeah. 1.5 hour of rosin talk. I would tune in.
Yeah. I'll bring a spectacular Norwegian rosin. Yes. Yeah.
But it could also be like the detailed technical stuff. We could maybe look at some videos together and discuss what we're seeing. But I think also, if there's a chance that somebody is watching this, I don't know.
I will be watching it.
Yeah. Yes. Again and again.
And again. Yes.
But if somebody's watching out there, then I mean, we could take topics. If somebody are interested in something, write it in a comment wherever this will be, probably a YouTube thing. Then we can take it up and talk about it.
Good idea.
Because it's probably something that we're interested in too, if it's something with violence.
Maybe we could also start being entrepreneurial and do stuff like, Ole Bull, the famous violinist from Norway, post Paganini. When he was touring the US, they took his bath water and filled it up in bottles and sold it to the audience. Maybe we could also find some new, things that violinists really need to do. I don't know. He did. I don't know if you have. Yeah. Would you consider having, all 4 of you in the quartet's bathtub mixed in one and then sold in bottles?
That sounds awesomely horrible.
Or simply the Danish string quartet rosin.
Yeah, that would be cool. Now it's not. I'm not gonna do commercial talk, but merchandise. I mean, that's merchandise, right?
That's merchandise.
We are dipping our toes into it.
Yeah,
actually,
let's do that.
Yeah, let's do it. We need a sweatband, podcast sweatband.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching.